Beneath still waters, the stillness before, the town of Willow Creek prided itself on its silence. Rows of maple-lined streets wove between neatly trimmed hedges and colonial-style homes, all painted varying shades of beige and white. Uniform, tranquil, obedient. It was the kind of place where secrets festered under the floorboards, masked by barbecues and neighborhood watch signs. Claire Weller stood at her kitchen window, stirring her coffee without looking. Outside, the morning fog hung low over the empty street, muffling the world in grayness. Her reflection in the glass seemed ghost-like, thin-lipped and hollow-eyed, a woman quietly unraveling behind a mask of suburban grace. The house was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional sigh of the old wood beams. Upstairs, Michael still slept, or at least pretended to. Claire knew his routines too well to be fooled. He lay awake each morning, silently resenting her, perhaps even plotting. Theirs had become a house not of love, but of cohabitation, a cold arrangement maintained for appearances in the iron cage of shared debt. Claire set the mug down with a soft clink and turned. The kitchen was spotless, sterile, more showroom than home. She drifted into the living room, where the large windows framed a view of the neatly clipped front lawn, dew glistening on the grass like a million tiny eyes. Her phone vibrated on the coffee table, a shiver against the polished wood. One word lit up the screen. Ready? No signature? No need. Claire knew who it was. She sat, feeling the tremble of adrenaline in her fingertips. Her thumb hovered above the screen before pressing back, composing two words. It's time. The response came immediately. Tonight. Claire exhaled through her nose, a long, steady breath. She placed the phone face down and stared into the middle distance. Outside, somewhere down the block, a lawnmower sputtered to life. An ordinary noise in an ordinary town. But today it sounded like the roar of inevitability. 3 miles across town, in a low, flat-roofed house crouching behind an overgrown hedge, Claire's best and only friend mirrored Claire's unease. Lena Hart adjusted the blinds with 2 fingers, peering out into her empty driveway. The tension in her gut had not eased since she awoke, dreams still clinging like spiderwebs to her mind. Her house was the opposite of Claire's. Cluttered, alive with mess, unfolded laundry draped over chairs, magazines in chaotic piles, dishes in the sink bearing testimony to hasty meals. Yet for all its chaos, it was her own, free from the stifling expectations that weighed on Claire like lead. She checked her phone again, reading Claire's message a second, third time. Tonight, it was final. No more second-guessing, no more what-ifs. They had planned this down to the smallest detail, over whispered conversations at the back of coffee shops and late-night phone calls when the world was asleep. And Michael Weller, Claire's husband, was a man deserving of their darkest designs. Lena's lips pressed into a thin line as she pulled open a drawer, revealing a battered revolver wrapped in an oil-stained rag. The metal was cold against her palm, heavier than she remembered, as though it sensed the gravity of what it was about to do. She slid it into the oversized pocket of her denim jacket and took a final survey of her home. A shiver of foreboding passed through her, but she shook it off. There was no turning back. Michael was a disease, and tonight they would perform the cure. The plan was simple in theory, complex in execution. A late-night rendezvous at the small college where Michael served as president. An accident staged to look like negligence. An unfortunate fall into the drained swimming pool during off hours. No witnesses, no suspicions. Just a tragic, freak occurrence in a community that swallowed bad news with a shudder and a swift burial. As she locked the front door behind her, Lena thought of Claire's face. Pale, composed, betraying none of the turmoil roiling beneath. Claire, who had once been so vibrant, so full of life, now trapped in a gilded cage. Lena felt the old protectiveness rise in her chest. Claire deserved freedom. They both did. Outside, the sun was burning off the fog, revealing a sky scrubbed clean and blue. The kind of day that made horrors feel distant, impossible. But Lena knew better. Horror could live anywhere, even in Willow Creek, especially in Willow Creek. That evening, the streets bled into twilight, the sky a muted canvas of purples and bruised pinks. Street lamps flickered to life one by one, scattering pockets of dim gold on the sidewalks. Claire sat in the passenger seat of her car, parked 3 blocks away from the college. She watched the building from a distance, its silhouette sharp against the fading sky. A modern structure of glass and steel, cold and imposing. She checked her watch. 9:43 p.m. Michael was inside working late as usual. Repairs to monitor, reports to file, excuses to stay away from home. Claire's mouth twisted in a bitter smile. How ironic that the same excuses would now shield his absence from suspicion. Lena pulled up behind Claire's car, headlights flashing once before going dark. Claire stepped out, heart hammering, and crossed to the other vehicle. She slid into the passenger seat without a word. Lena handed her a flashlight and a coil of rope. The gun remained hidden, though its presence was tangible between them, a silent witness to their collusion. "Ready?" Lena asked, voice low, steady. Claire nodded. "Let's finish it." They moved like shadows through the building's side entrance, which Lena had unlocked earlier that afternoon under the guise of listening to a class lecture. Inside, the air was stale, the halls deserted. Their footsteps echoed on the polished linoleum, a reminder of their isolation. The pool was at the far end of the building, beyond the gymnasium, a vast, empty rectangle of tiles and silence, drained for maintenance. Claire's skin prickled as they entered, the faint smell of chlorine clinging to the air. Michael stood near the edge of the pit, clipboard in hand, his back to them. He wore his habitual navy blazer, the sleeves rolled up, revealing the gold watch Claire had bought him for their anniversary, a cruel memento of better lies. Claire exchanged a glance with Lena, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Michael!" Claire called, her voice slicing through the cavernous space. He turned, surprise flickering across his face, quickly smoothed into a smile. Thin, calculating. "Claire! Lena! What brings you here?" Claire took a step closer, heart pounding. "We need to talk." Michael chuckled, low and humorless. "I'm busy." "It won't take long." Lena moved behind him, quiet as a whisper. Michael's eyes darted between them, suspicion clouding his expression. "What's this about?" Claire kept her face impassive. "Justice." Before he could react, Lena struck, a sharp shove that sent Michael stumbling. His arms pinwheeled, the clipboard skittering from his grip, and he fell into the empty pool with a sickening thud. Claire peered over the edge. Michael lay motionless, twisted unnaturally, a crimson halo spreading beneath his head. For a moment, there was only the sound of their breathing, ragged and disbelieving. Then Lena spoke, her voice taut. "Help me finish it." They scrambled down, their movements jerky, clumsy. Lena pressed 2 fingers to Michael's neck. No pulse. Claire sagged in relief, or was it horror, and helped Lena inspect his body. They arranged him awkwardly, the way he might have fallen naturally, and Claire dropped the rope nearby, a nod to the lie they would soon tell. As they climbed out, Lena wiped her hands on her jeans, leaving smudges of blood. Claire turned away, bile rising in her throat. "It's done," Lena said. Claire didn't answer. She stared down at Michael's body, so still, so small in the vast emptiness of the pool. A shiver crawled up her spine. She could swear he was smiling. Echoes in the water. The house felt colder than it should have. Claire pressed her back to the front door the moment she shut it behind her, shutting out the world, but not the memory of what had just transpired. Dead. Michael was dead, and they had killed him. She thought the truth would offer relief, a breath of clean air after years of suffocating beneath his cruelty. Instead, it settled around her shoulders like a wet shroud. She shuffled into the living room, trailing invisible footprints. Her hands, trembling faintly, found the lamp. Light spilled across the space, too bright, too artificial. She turned it back off. In the darkness, she could pretend for a moment longer that nothing had changed. Claire moved to the kitchen, pulling open cabinets in a ritual of normalcy. Mug, tea bag, kettle on the stove. It was only as she reached for the faucet that she noticed her reflection in the window again. Wide-eyed, pale, a figure drawn too tightly in her own skin. She looked away, unable to face it. The kettle began its slow, hissing boil. Claire leaned her palms against the countertop, grounding herself. Every cell in her body still buzzed with adrenaline. She could taste it on her tongue. Metallic, bitter. Footsteps creaked above her head. She stiffened. Michael? No, impossible. He was lying in the drained swimming pool, his blood pooling in the cracks between tiles. She closed her eyes, listening. Silence. Old house. Old bones settling, she told herself. She poured the water over the tea bag, watching it bleed brown tendrils into the cup. The scent of chamomile rose, incongruously comforting. She carried the mug upstairs, cradling it like a talisman. Their bedroom door was ajar. Claire hesitated before nudging it open with her foot. Empty, as it should be. The bed was perfectly made. Her habit, not Michael's. The covers smooth, hospital-cornered, immaculate. A stage set for a life that was never as polished behind closed doors. Claire set the mug on her nightstand and sat on the edge of the bed. Her heart was a metronome in her chest, steady, unrelenting. She pressed her fists into her thighs, knuckles whitening. The plan was in motion. They would wait a few days, long enough to sell the story of Michael's tragic accident. She would feign concern when he failed to return home. She would call Lena for support, letting her play the part of sympathetic friend. The police would investigate, find nothing suspicious. No one would question a college president working late at night on an empty campus, slipping and falling into an under-maintenance pool. She would cry. She could do that. Claire had been practicing for years, and then it would be over. Free. She lay back against the pillows and closed her eyes, trying to summon sleep. It didn't come. Morning in Willow Creek was a lie painted in soft pastels. Blue sky, birdsong, children waiting for buses with backpacks slung low. Claire watched it from the front porch, a blanket draped around her shoulders, a cooling mug of tea between her hands. Her phone buzzed against her thigh. Lena. Claire answered quickly, her voice low. Hello? News yet? Lena's voice was taut, almost too calm. Not yet, it's early. He should have been found by now. Claire swallowed. Maybe they haven't gone into the pool area yet. Or maybe... Lena trailed off. Claire's skin prickled. What? A pause. Lena exhaled. Nothing. Just call me as soon as you hear anything. I will. Claire hung up and stared out at the world, pretending to be normal. By 10:30, the call came. It wasn't the police. It was Michael's secretary, Mrs. Baines, her voice flustered and sharp. Mrs. Weller, good morning. Well, we were wondering if Mr. Weller is all right. He didn't come in today and he hasn't returned any calls. Claire blinked. She had expected the call to be the police informing her of the accident. The tragic discovery. Not this. Oh, she said, keeping her tone carefully neutral. That's strange. He worked late last night. I assumed he'd left early this morning. Mrs. Baines hesitated. Would you like us to file a missing person report? Claire's mouth felt dry. Give it a few more hours. He probably stopped to get something to eat somewhere and just lost track of time. If you're sure, I'm sure. She ended the call, hands shaking slightly. Why hadn't they found him? Had they not checked the pool? Was the gym not open yet? It was under construction after all. She picked up her phone and called Lena. They haven't found him. Lena's breath hissed through the line. What do you mean they haven't found him? I don't know. They just said he didn't show up. No one's checked. A heavy pause. Lena spoke, voice flat. I'm going over there. Claire's stomach twisted. No, stay put. We can't risk being seen. We can't risk them not finding him either, Lena snapped. What if no one goes in there? What if he's not? Don't say it. Claire closed her eyes. We wait. It's safer. Safe? Safe was before we pushed a man into an empty pool. Claire said nothing. Lena sighed, long and bitter. I'll call you later, she said and hung up. Claire set the phone down and buried her face in her hands. This wasn't going the way it was supposed to. Night fell heavier than before. Thick clouds choked the stars from view, and a low wind muttered against the house. Claire sat in the dark living room, staring at the blank television screen. She hadn't bothered to turn it on. No news report would bring comfort tonight. A knock at the door startled her. 3 sharp raps. Claire's heart leapt into her throat. She stood, legs stiff, and moved toward the door with slow, cautious steps. She peered through the peephole. A uniformed officer. Her hand hesitated on the knob. Was this it? Was this how they delivered bad news? A face-to-face condolence? She opened the door a crack. "Mrs. Weller?" The officer's voice was polite, professional. "Yes?" "Sorry to bother you this late, ma'am. I'm Officer Randall. We're doing a welfare check. Your husband's colleagues reported him missing." Claire nodded, schooling her face into the perfect mask of worried confusion. "Yes, I spoke to his secretary this morning. Mind if we come in and ask a few questions?" We dotted. Claire's stomach knotted as a second officer stepped into view. A woman, mid-30s, sharp-eyed. "Of course," Claire said, stepping back. They entered, eyes sweeping the immaculate living room. Claire wrapped her arms around herself, feigning a shiver. "Can you tell us when you last saw your husband?" Randall asked, pulling a small notepad from his pocket. "Last night. Around 8. He left for work." "Was that unusual?" Claire shook her head. "He often worked late. He was very dedicated." The female officer, badge reading Sergeant Monroe, tilted her head. "And you didn't think it odd that he didn't come home?" "I was worried," Claire admitted. "But sometimes he stayed overnight if it was too late to drive back." Randall scribbled something. Monroe's gaze didn't leave Claire's face. "May we look around?" Monroe asked. Claire blinked. "Look around?" "Just to confirm he's not here, standard procedure." Claire hesitated, refusing would look suspicious. "Of course." They moved through the house with professional efficiency, their footsteps muffled on the plush carpet. Claire stood rigid by the front door, heart hammering. After what felt like an eternity, they returned. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mrs. Weller," Randall said. "Do you think something's happened to him?" Claire asked, letting a quiver into her voice. Randall offered a tight smile. "Too soon to say. If you think of anything unusual, give us a call." They left, the door clicking shut behind them. Claire locked it immediately, leaning against the cool wood. Her body shook, not entirely from fear. They knew nothing. Not yet. But why hadn't they found Michael? Claire climbed the stairs to the bedroom, intending to collapse into bed and hide from the gnawing uncertainty. She stopped short. On her pillow, neatly placed, was Michael's gold watch, the one he had been wearing last night. Claire backed away, heart stuttering painfully in her chest. She hadn't brought it home. She hadn't touched it. The house was supposed to be empty. Behind her, in the darkness, she thought she heard the soft, deliberate creak of a floorboard. A presence unseen. Claire didn't move. The silence was thick, viscous, pressing against her eardrums like deep water. She stared at the watch, gleaming innocently on the pillow, its gold face catching the ambient light in a glint that felt almost mocking. The floorboard behind her creaked again, slow, deliberate. The rational part of her mind scrambled for answers. Old house, shifting wood, wind through the eaves. But the air was dead still, the house too silent. Claire knew its sounds intimately after years of restless, sleepless nights. This was different. This was breathing, waiting. She spun, fists clenched, ready to confront. What? An intruder? A memory? The hallway yawned empty before her, just darkness and the distant gleam of moonlight on the banister. Still, she didn't relax. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong, that she was being watched. She backed into the bedroom, never turning her back on the hallway. Her hand found the doorknob and pulled it shut with a soft click. She twisted the lock, though she knew, foolishly, it wouldn't stop anything determined enough. Claire's knees gave way, and she sat hard on the edge of the bed. The watch sat there, silent, accusing. She forced herself to pick it up, warm, as if it had just been taken off. Her hands trembled as she turned it over. No scratches, no signs of distress. Exactly as it had been on Michael's wrist before he had fallen, broken and bleeding, into the pool. She dropped the watch onto the nightstand as if it had burned her. This wasn't possible. They had left him there. Alone. Dead. A trick, she thought wildly. Someone was trying to scare her. Lena? No. Lena was reckless, but she wasn't cruel. Besides, she had no reason to frighten Claire. They were in this together. Claire crawled into bed fully clothed, pulling the covers tight around her. She stared into the dark, unblinking, until the blackness behind her eyes began to pulse with half-formed images. Michael's face, not as it was in life, but in death. Twisted, bloody, his mouth curved in a grotesque, knowing smile. She slept at last, fitfully, slipping into a restless dream where she stood at the edge of a vast, empty pool, staring down at her own reflection. Except it wasn't her face looking back. It was Michael's, eyes wide and full of hate, his mouth moving silently in words she couldn't hear. She woke gasping, heart racing, tangled in sweat-damp sheets. Morning, but no sun. The sky outside was a dull, unrelenting gray, pressing down with the promise of rain. Claire rolled out of bed and moved stiffly through the morning rituals. Brush teeth, splash water on her face, pull her hair into a hasty knot, all performed on autopilot. Downstairs the house was, as she left it. No signs of forced entry, no misplaced objects, no footprints where there should be none. Maybe she had imagined it. Maybe. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lena. "We need to talk, now." Claire swallowed hard and typed back, "Here or there?" The response was instant. There. Claire hesitated only a moment before grabbing her keys. Lena's house was a weather-worn bungalow at the dead end of a tree-choked street, a holdover from a less polished era before the developers moved in. Claire pulled into the driveway, gravel crunching beneath her tires, and cut the engine. Lena yanked the door open before Claire could knock, her face tight, skin pale beneath the smudges of last night's makeup. "You're not going to believe this," she said without preamble, stepping aside. Claire entered and immediately noticed the difference. The house was messier than usual. Dishes stacked, unopened mail scattered across counters, the air thick with the sour tang of old coffee and garbage. Lena led her into the kitchen and pointed wordlessly at the table. There, placed dead center, was the revolver, the same one Lena had brought to the pool, the same one that they had gotten rid of, or so they thought. Claire stared at it, throat tightening. "How?" she began. "I found it on my nightstand this morning," Lena said, voice flat. "Loaded. Safety off." Claire's mouth worked, but no words came. "I didn't bring it back. I know I didn't. I threw it in the river after. Claire clutched the back of a chair for support. "Then how?" Lena shook her head sharply. "I don't know, but I didn't put it there." The revolver sat between them like a third party, silent and accusatory. Claire couldn't take her eyes off it. "Maybe you," she started, but Lena cut her off. "No, don't. I didn't." Lena's voice cracked slightly, the facade slipping. Claire swallowed. "It doesn't make sense." "None of it does." Lena rubbed her hands over her face. "He's dead. We made sure. We watched him." She broke off, glancing away. Claire sat down heavily. "Maybe someone else found him." "And what? Snuck into my house to leave me a message?" Lena's laugh was harsh, humorless. "Or maybe it's him. Maybe we didn't finish the job." Claire thought of the gold watch, the warm metal against her skin. A sharp knock at the door made them both jump. Lena glanced at Claire, who nodded once. Lena moved cautiously to the door, peering through the peephole. "Who is it?" Claire whispered. Lena stepped back, face ashen. "It's him." Claire felt the world tilt sideways. "What?" "It's Michael." The knock came again, harder this time, more insistent. Claire rose on shaky legs and moved to the window. She pulled back the curtain a fraction. There, standing on the porch in the gray light of morning, was Michael, pale, immaculate in a dark suit, hands folded politely in front of him. His hair was neatly combed, his expression placid, untroubled, exactly as he had looked the morning before. Not a scratch on him. He raised his hand and knocked again, slow, patient. Lena stumbled back. "It can't be." Claire couldn't look away. Her heart thundered against her ribs. Michael tilted his head slightly as if sensing her gaze. A slow smile unfurled across his face, wide, knowing. Claire let the curtain fall. "What do we do?" Lena hissed. The knock came again. Then again. Rhythmic, unrelenting. Claire grabbed Lena's arm. "We don't open the door. But he knows we're here." Claire tightened her grip. "I don't care. We don't open the door." The knocking stopped. Claire and Lena froze, straining to hear. Footsteps retreated, gravel crunching underfoot. Claire risked a glance through the window. The porch was empty. Claire exhaled slowly, her legs threatening to give out. Lena sagged against the wall, face pale. Neither spoke for a long moment. Finally, Lena whispered, "What the hell is happening?" Claire shook her head, but the words wouldn't come. There was no rational explanation, only the gnawing, impossible truth. Michael was dead, but Michael had just knocked on their door, and he had smiled. Not the smile of a man wronged, the smile of a man who had already won. Splintered trust. Neither of them spoke for a long while after the knock stopped. It was as though the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. Another sound, another knock, a shadow slipping across the windows. But nothing came. Claire backed away from the window, her legs stiff and uncertain. She collapsed into one of Lena's threadbare kitchen chairs, her fingers gripping the edge of the table as if to keep from floating away. Lena paced, back and forth, booted feet leaving dark prints on the scuffed linoleum. Her movements were sharp, erratic, like a trapped animal testing the walls of its cage. "It's not possible," Lena muttered. "We killed him." Claire didn't answer. The revolver sat between them, its presence now obscene, as if mocking their earlier certainty. "I saw him hit the ground," Lena continued, her voice rising. "I checked. No pulse, nothing." "We left him there," Claire said quietly, hollow. We didn't move him." "Exactly, so how is he—" Lena broke off, raking her fingers through her hair. "It's a trick, it has to be." Claire wanted to believe that, desperately. But she couldn't shake the memory of that face at the window, the calm, patient smile. Not angry, not vengeful, triumphant. Lena slammed her palm on the table, making Claire jump. "This is your fault," she snapped. Claire blinked. "What?" "You said wait. You said let them find him. Maybe if we'd gone back, checked, this wouldn't be happening." Claire straightened in her chair, blood heating. "You agreed to the plan. We both did." "I trusted you." Claire's hands curled into fists. "And I trusted you not to lose your nerve." The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly. Lena paced away again, shoulders tight. "We need to finish this." Claire shook her head. "No, we're not doing anything rash. We wait. We think." Lena turned, eyes blazing. "Think? About what, Claire? How to die slower?" Claire opened her mouth to respond, but the words died in her throat. There on the kitchen counter, where there had been only a pile of unopened mail moments ago, lay a photograph. Claire rose slowly, as if gravity itself had thickened, and moved toward it. The photograph was glossy, freshly printed, still curling slightly at the edges, as if it had just come from the printer. It showed the swimming pool, the one at the college, under the cold glare of overhead lights. Empty. No body. No blood. Nothing. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. "How?" she whispered. Lena came up beside her, staring down at the photo, her face drained of color. "Oh, no." Claire's phone buzzed in her pocket, sharp and sudden in the silence. She snatched it out, heart slamming against her ribs. Unknown number. She hesitated. The screen flashed again. "Answer!" She pressed the green icon and lifted the phone to her ear. "Claire." Michael's voice was unmistakable, smooth, calm, like warm syrup. "You left me in a very inconvenient place." Claire's knees threatened to buckle. She gripped the counter with her free hand. "What do you want?" she whispered. "To come home," Michael said. "Isn't that what you wanted, Claire? A husband home where he belongs?" She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "Don't worry," Michael continued. I'll see you soon. I have something very special planned for us." The line went dead. Claire lowered the phone slowly, staring at the screen as if it might tell her what to do next. Lena grabbed her by the arm. "What did he say?" "He's coming." Lena swore under her breath and began pacing again, faster now, like a pendulum swinging out of control. Claire tried to think, tried to shove back the rising tide of panic. This wasn't possible. People didn't just get up and walk away from fatal head injuries. Corpses didn't make phone calls or deliver photographs or knock on doors. Unless he hadn't been dead, unless he had survived. But Claire had seen the blood, the way his body had twisted unnaturally at the bottom of the pool. No one could survive that. No one. Lena stopped pacing abruptly. "We need to leave. Pack a bag. Get the hell out of town." "And go where?" Claire asked, her voice brittle. "We'll be fugitives. They'll find us." "Better than staying here and waiting for him to—" Lena cut herself off, voice breaking. Claire turned away, staring out the window. The street was empty. The wind stirred the trees, whispering against the house. "No," she said finally. "Running will just make us look guilty." Lena laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "We are guilty." Claire didn't respond. Instead, she moved toward the front door and slid the bolt across. It felt inadequate, a child's defense against the boogeyman. But it was something. Lena hovered by the table, staring at the revolver. Claire watched her, a sick feeling growing in her stomach. "We wait," Claire said. "We stay calm. We'll figure this out." Lena nodded slowly, but Claire could see the doubt in her eyes. The revolver disappeared into Lena's jacket pocket once more, the movement quick and practiced. Claire returned to the kitchen table and sank back into her chair, exhaustion dragging at her bones. The photograph still lay there, silent evidence of their unraveling. Lena sat across from her, shoulders hunched, face shadowed. The storm outside deepened, wind rattling the windows, rain beginning to patter against the roof in uneven drips. They sat there, two conspirators turned prisoners, waiting, waiting for Michael, waiting for the inevitable. Night fell like a shroud. The storm grew louder, the rain heavier, drumming against the house with relentless fury. Thunder growled in the distance, low and menacing. Claire couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room, the lamp on low, staring at the front door. Every creak of the house, every groan of the wind made her flinch. Lena had dozed off in an armchair, the revolver clutched in her lap, her head lolling awkwardly to one side. Claire envied her the oblivion. She checked her phone obsessively. No messages, no calls, just the empty silence of waiting. Sometime after midnight, Claire's eyes drifted closed. When she opened them again, the lamp was off. The room was dark. She sat up straight, heart leaping. The front door was ajar, open 2 inches. Rain splattered the floor just inside, carried on the wind. Claire rose slowly, every muscle tense. Across the room, Lena stirred, then sat up, blinking. "What?" she began, but Claire silenced her with a gesture. They listened. Footsteps. Software deliberate. Upstairs. Claire's blood ran cold. Lena stood, gripping the revolver. Claire nodded once, and they moved together, silent as shadows toward the stairs. The house was utterly dark, except for the occasional flash of lightning illuminating the hallway in stark, skeletal lines. The footsteps were slow, unhurried, moving from room to room. Claire's breath caught as she heard the unmistakable sound of a door creaking open. She and Lena reached the top of the stairs. Lightning flashed again, throwing their shadows long and monstrous against the walls. Claire edged down the hall, Lena just behind her, revolver steady in her hand. The door to Lena's bedroom stood open. Claire could see the bed, perfectly made, and the faint shape of something lying atop it. Something long, thin. She moved closer, heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. On the bed lay a single item, Michael's gold watch, ticking. Claire stepped back, bumping into Lena. Then a voice, soft and close, spoke in the dark. "Miss me?" The game begins. Claire barely had time to scream before Lena lunged forward, the revolver snapping up. The muzzle flare lit the dark hallway in a vicious, staccato flash. A deafening bang exploded in Claire's ears, momentarily stunning her. The smell of gunpowder mingled with the rain-drenched air pouring through the open door. The bullet struck something, and the figure in the dark staggered back. Claire blinked furiously, clearing her vision. The flash of lightning that followed revealed no one. The hallway was empty. The only evidence of Michael's presence was the ticking of the gold watch on the bed, steady and cruel. Lena swore under her breath. "I hit him!" Claire wasn't so sure. Her hands trembled as she moved forward, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped thing. The hallway stretched ahead, empty. No blood, no body. The house absorbed the storm's fury. Wind rattled the windows, rain lashed the roof. But inside, the silence was thick and unnatural. Claire turned to Lena. "What if it wasn't him?" Lena's mouth twisted. "Then who the hell was it?" Claire didn't have an answer. She stepped into the bedroom, staring down at the watch. It gleamed malevolently in the intermittent lightning. She picked it up, heavy, warm, alive, and slipped it into her pocket without thinking. They needed to leave. Now. "We're done waiting," Lena said, voice tight. "Get your keys." Claire didn't argue. She turned toward the stairs and froze. At the bottom on the welcome mat, slick with rain, sat another photograph. A new one. Claire's stomach twisted as she moved cautiously down, Lena behind her, revolver raised and ready. She knelt and picked it up with numb fingers. Another shot of the pool, but not empty this time. No. In the center of the drain basin stood a man, blurry, distant, but unmistakably Michael. He stood with his arms outstretched, as if in welcome or in mockery, staring directly at the camera. At them. Lena swore softly, then muttered, "He's playing with us." Claire turned the photo over. Scrawled across the back in dark, wet ink were two words. "Come home." The floorboards beneath them creaked, not from their own weight, but from something upstairs. Something moving. Claire didn't think. She grabbed Lena's wrist and pulled her toward the front door. They burst into the night, the storm soaking them instantly, hair plastered to their faces, clothes clinging like second skin. Claire's car sat at the curb, droplets streaking the windshield in long, glittering lines. She fumbled with her keys, cursing her trembling hands until Lena snatched them and unlocked the doors. They piled in, slamming the doors shut behind them, the sound strangely muffled in the small, rain-pounded space. Claire jammed the key into the ignition. Nothing. She tried again. The engine wheezed, coughed, died. Panic coiled tight in her chest. "Move!" Lena snapped, pushing Claire aside and popping the hood release. She climbed out, disappearing into the rain. Claire sat frozen, hands clenched in her lap. Her headlights flickered to life, casting twin beams across the street. In their glow, she saw him, Michael, standing at the far end of the street, perfectly still, hands at his sides, face half shrouded by shadow. The rain didn't seem to touch him. Claire's breath hitched. Lena slammed the hood shut and scrambled back into the car, drenched, furious. "Battery's dead. He killed it." Claire's mouth was dry. She raised a trembling hand and pointed. Lena turned. Michael didn't move, but Claire could feel him smiling, even from here. She started to reach for her phone, then froze. It buzzed in her pocket before she could touch it. Another message from an unknown number. "You can't run." Claire felt the bottom of her stomach drop. "He's not going to stop," Lena said quietly, gripping the revolver like a lifeline. Claire shook her head. "He doesn't have to. He's already won." They didn't try to run again. They barricaded themselves in Lena's living room, dragging heavy furniture against the doors, locking the windows, as if it would matter. Lena stood watch by the window, revolver in hand, peering into the storm-choked night. Claire sat on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, the gold watch in her pocket ticking steadily against her thigh. She couldn't bear to look at it, couldn't bear to take it out. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. Time was slippery now, unreal. The storm raged on, an endless assault against the house, And then, silence. The wind died. The rain ceased. The world held its breath. Claire and Lena exchanged a glance. Claire stood slowly, moving to the window. Outside, the street lay glistening, water pooling in the gutters. The clouds had broken, revealing a sliver of moonlight. And in that pale illumination, Claire saw them. Footprints, leading from the edge of the driveway to the front door. Muddy footprints, dark and wet against the concrete, and something else, a shadow detached from any figure, stretching toward the house. Claire staggered back. Lena gripped her arm. "What is it?" Claire pointed. Lena cursed softly. "He's here!" The doorknob rattled once. Claire and Lena froze. Another rattle, more insistent. Claire's phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look, but she did. "Let me in." The revolver in Lena's hand trembled. Claire shook her head. "Don't. He wants us to open it." The rattling stopped. Silence. Claire's heart pounded in her ears. She thought she heard something then. A voice, low and coaxing, slipping through the cracks in the walls. "Claire!" She clenched her fists. No, she wouldn't listen. But Lena was moving toward the door, as if pulled by invisible strings. "Don't!" Claire hissed. Lena didn't seem to hear. She reached the door and pressed her palm flat against it. Claire moved fast, grabbing her wrist. "Lena! No!" The door shuddered. Not from a knock, from a blow. Something heavy and deliberate. Lena raised the revolver, hands steady now, and pointed it at the door. Another blow. The frame cracked. "Lena," Claire whispered, "if he gets in, he won't." Another blow. The hinges shrieked. The door caved inward slightly, a splintering wound at its center. Through it, Claire saw an eye, wide, smiling. She stumbled back. Lena pulled the trigger. The gun roared. Wood splintered. The door sagged, mortally wounded. The eye disappeared. Silence. Claire and Lena stood, breathing hard, waiting. Nothing. Claire stepped closer, peering through the crack. The porch was empty, but the footprints, the dark, wet prints, were inside now, tracking across the floor, leading toward them. Claire backed away, her mind screaming at her to run, but her body frozen. The watch ticked faster in her pocket, an impossibility, but she heard it, rapid and frantic, like a trapped bird's heart. Lena moved toward the hallway, revolver raised. Claire tried to follow. The lights flickered, and then standing at the end of the hallway, framed in darkness, was Michael. Whole, smiling, waiting. Fractures. Claire stood rooted to the floor, blood roaring in her ears as Michael's figure loomed at the end of the hallway. He wasn't rushing toward them, wasn't threatening them with a weapon. Just standing there, smiling, patient as ever, as though he had all the time in the world. Lena's breathing had gone shallow and fast. Her finger twitched on the trigger of the revolver, but she didn't fire. Maybe she sensed, as Claire did, that a bullet wouldn't do anything now. Not to him. Michael's voice came soft, the same voice that once told Claire sweet lies in the early years of their marriage. "You should have done it properly." Claire swallowed hard. Her throat felt raw. "You're dead." Michael tilted his head, the smile never faltering. "Am I?" He took a step forward, slow, unhurried. Lena raised the revolver higher. "Don't move." Another step, closer now. His eyes gleamed, not with anger, but with amusement. "Stop!" Lena barked. Michael took another step. The revolver cracked. Michael's head snapped to the side, the bullet catching him just above the temple. But when he turned back, he was still smiling. Not even a drop of blood. Claire's knees buckled. She gripped the edge of the wall, the sharp pain grounding her. "This isn't real." Michael continued forward, step after deliberate step, as if daring Lena to shoot again. She did. Twice more. Bang, bang. Michael's body jerked slightly with each impact, but he didn't fall, didn't even stagger. He just kept coming. Lena cursed under her breath, stepping backward toward Claire. Claire found her voice brittle and thin. "What do you want?" Michael stopped, just out of reach. To finish what you started. Claire's fingers brushed against the watch in her pocket. Still ticking, still impossibly alive. Michael's gaze flicked down, sensing her movement. He smiled wider. Ah, you kept it. A memento. Claire's breath came in shallow gasps. She wanted to throw the watch away, but some deeper instinct told her that was a mistake, that it was important. Michael's eyes flicked to Lena. And you, Lena, always the loyal friend, the enabler. You told her to do it, didn't you? That's a lie, Lena snapped. Michael raised an eyebrow. Is it? Claire turned to Lena, heart pounding harder. What is he talking about? Lena didn't answer right away. She kept the gun trained on Michael, though her hands were starting to shake. Michael chuckled, low and rich. She didn't tell you the whole truth, did she? Shut up, Lena hissed. But Michael only smiled wider. She didn't tell you that she needed you to hate me, that she fed you the worst stories, stoked the fire, made sure you were ready to act. Did you think it was coincidence she was there that night? So eager? Claire shook her head, backing away from both of them now. No, Lena wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Michael stepped closer to Lena, his voice a purr. Wouldn't manipulate you? Wouldn't push you until murder seemed like mercy? Lena's jaw tightened. He's lying, Claire. But her voice wavered, and Claire saw something then, a flicker of guilt, of fear. She looked at Lena, really looked at her. The sleepless eyes, the nervous twitches, the way she always seemed to know the right words to say, to fan Claire's anger whenever Michael was particularly cruel. Claire had leaned on Lena for years, trusted her, confided in her the darkest parts of her marriage. Had Lena leaned back? Had she pushed? Tell her, Lena, Michael said, voice silky. Tell her how you and I were lovers. Tell her how you wanted me dead before she even thought of it. Lena's lip curled. You're the one who destroyed her. Michael shrugged. True, but who made her believe the only escape was death? Claire took another step back, her back hitting the cold wall of the hallway. Lena's hand wavered on the revolver. Claire, she said, he's playing with us. He's trying to turn us against each other. But Claire saw the tremor in Lena's hand, the sheen of sweat on her forehead. Answer me, Claire said. Her voice sounded foreign, brittle. Is it true? Lena hesitated, and that hesitation was an answer. Michael stepped back, giving them space as if savoring the unraveling. I wanted you safe, Lena said finally. Her voice was quiet, pleading. I wanted you free of him. He would have destroyed you. Claire pressed her palms to her temples, nausea rising. The room tilted slightly. She couldn't look at either of them. Michael laughed, not a sound of joy, but of satisfaction. She convinced you there was no other way. Stop it, Claire said. Her voice cracked. She made you believe you were weak, Michael continued, that you couldn't leave unless he was dead. Claire squeezed her eyes shut. No, no, no. She saved you, Michael said. From yourself. Claire's hand found the watch in her pocket again, the steady ticking grounding her. She manipulated you, Claire, just like I did. You think you chose freedom, but you were trapped either way. Claire opened her eyes. Lena was crying now, silent tears streaking down her cheeks. The revolver sagged in her hand. I didn't want to lose you, Lena whispered. Claire's breath hitched. She had leaned so hard on Lena, leaned until she broke. And Michael was right. She had never really been free. Not from him, not from Lena, not from herself. Michael stepped closer again. This is how it ends, Claire. Not with escape, not with freedom, with the truth. Claire's fingers tightened on the watch. Finish what you started. She moved before she could think, pulled the watch from her pocket and threw it. It hit Michael square in the chest. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Michael stumbled back, his expression twisting, not in pain, but in surprise. The ticking grew louder, filling the room, a deafening, relentless heartbeat. Michael's smile faltered. His skin shimmered, rippled, as if something beneath was trying to tear free. The ticking reached a crescendo. Then, silence. Michael crumpled to the floor. Claire stood frozen, panting, staring at the body. It lay still. Lena lowered the revolver, face pale and drawn. "What did you do?" Claire shook her head slowly. "I don't know." The watch lay next to Michael's body, the glass cracked, the hands frozen. Dead still. The storm outside had passed. The house was silent, but not the charged silence of before. The natural, final quiet. Claire stepped forward cautiously. No breath, no movement. Lena moved beside her, nudging the body with her foot. Nothing. Dead. Truly dead. Claire exhaled a long, shuddering breath. It was over. It had to be over. They buried the body that night. Neither spoke. The earth was soft from the rain, the work heavy and slow. They didn't mark the grave, didn't speak the name. When it was done, they stood side by side in the pre-dawn gray, mud clinging to their hands, their clothes, their souls. Lena glanced at Claire, her voice raw. "Can you forgive me?" Claire didn't answer. She didn't know. She turned and walked away, leaving Lena standing alone among the dead. Later, alone in her house, Claire sat in the kitchen, staring at the cracked watch lying on the table. She should throw it away, destroy it, but she couldn't. She reached out and touched it. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she heard it tick again. Soft, subtle, promising. Aftershocks. Days passed. Claire moved through them like a ghost. Sunlight returned to Willow Creek, but it was weak and insipid, filtering through the windows without warmth. The air smelled wrong, too clean, too crisp, as if the world were trying too hard to pretend nothing had happened. But Claire remembered. Every night she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cracked gold watch resting in the center. It hadn't ticked since that night. It simply was. A dead thing, an artifact, a trophy, a curse. She told herself she should get rid of it, toss it into the river, crush it under the heel of her boot, burn it and scatter the ashes. But still it remained, untouched except by her gaze. Lena called once. Claire let it ring. She wouldn't speak to her. Not yet, maybe not ever. Instead, she moved through the rituals of life. Coffee brewed and left cold on the counter. Laundry washed and folded, but never put away. Curtains drawn open to let in a sun that could no longer touch her. Neighbors waved when she stepped outside. She waved back. They didn't know. The police came by once more, asking if she'd heard anything new about Michael's disappearance. She offered them the same performance she'd rehearsed 100 times. Confusion, concern, fear. They bought it. Why wouldn't they? Claire Weller was the perfect suburban widow. Polite, composed, broken but brave. They didn't ask the right questions. Or perhaps they didn't want to know the answers. In Willow Creek, appearances were everything. One night, a week after that storm-drenched burial, Claire heard a sound. She was in bed, half dreaming, the boundary between sleep and waking blurred. A faint metallic click. She sat up, listened. Nothing. The house was silent, the kind of silence that pressed in close, too close, muffling the air. She rose and padded barefoot down the stairs, her heart thudding quietly against her ribs. She didn't turn on the lights. Somehow, darkness felt safer. In the kitchen, she found it where she left it, the watch. But it was no longer cracked. The glass face was pristine, gleaming faintly in the moonlight. Claire's breath caught. She leaned closer. The hands of the watch moved, not smoothly. No, they ticked in short, violent jerks, twitching forward second by second, like a struggling heartbeat. Claire reached out, fingers trembling. The moment her skin brushed the metal, the ticking stopped. Silence. And then, a whisper. Soft, sibilant. Not from the watch, but from inside her head. "Miss me?" Claire stumbled back, knocking over a chair. It clattered to the floor, the sound absurdly loud in the still house. Her heart pounded, wild and frantic. "No," she whispered to the empty kitchen. "You're dead." The watch face gleamed brighter, as if in response. Dead, yes, but not gone. Sleep abandoned her after that. She sat at the table until dawn, staring at the watch, waiting for it to move again. It didn't. Morning came, pale and anemic. Claire made herself coffee she didn't drink. She cleaned the kitchen she didn't use. She opened the front door to grab the newspaper she didn't read. It was then she saw it. Another photograph, propped neatly against the doorframe, as if left by a polite but persistent visitor. Her hands were numb as she picked it up. The image was clear, sharp, the backyard, her backyard, and in the center, a fresh mound of disturbed earth. The grave, the one she and Lena had dug together, their silence deeper than the grave itself. Except now the earth was torn open and empty. Claire let the photo slip from her fingers. It drifted to the ground, landing face up in the early morning sunlight. She didn't move, didn't breathe. A shadow fell across the porch. She knew, without looking who it was. But she looked anyway. Michael, standing at the edge of the walkway, hands in his pockets, head tilted slightly. Smiling, Claire backed into the house, slamming the door and sliding the bolt across. It was useless. She knew that. The house was no fortress, no sanctuary. He had already been inside once. She stumbled into the living room, heart hammering. Her phone vibrated on the coffee table. She snatched it up. Unknown number. She didn't answer. A text arrived a moment later. You forgot something. Claire didn't have to ask what. She didn't want to look. But her hand moved anyway. Another message blinked onto the screen. Come see. Claire swallowed. She moved to the window, pulled the curtain aside a fraction. Michael was gone. Only the empty street remained. But on the front porch, neatly placed where the photograph had been, was the watch. She stared at it, her breath trapped in her lungs. No, it couldn't be. It had been inside, on her kitchen table. She had not moved it, but there it sat, gleaming in the early morning light, the gold polished to a mirror shine. The second hand ticked steadily, beckoning. Claire closed her eyes, but the image was seared onto the inside of her lids. She was trapped. No escape. She had thought killing Michael would free her, but Michael had been right. You don't escape the prison you build for yourself. You carry it with you, everywhere, forever. That night, Claire sat at the kitchen table once more. The watch sat before her. She hadn't picked it up, not yet, but she knew she would, eventually. She wasn't strong enough to resist. The house creaked around her, whispering in the dark. In the distance, thunder rumbled, low and persistent, though the sky above Willow Creek was clear. Claire reached out, fingers brushing the watch's cool, smooth surface. The second she touched it, the whisper came again. Miss me? A shudder passed through her. She closed her hand around the watch, feeling the ticking reverberate up her arm, into her chest until it matched the beat of her own heart. She smiled, not a smile of joy, a smile of surrender. Missed you too, she whispered back. Outside, the wind stirred the trees and the shadows shifted. Waiting. Full circle. The watch ticked in her hand, steady and patient, a tiny persistent pulse, like the last heartbeat of a thing that refused to die. Claire sat still at the kitchen table, the world outside muted and distant, as though she no longer truly existed in it. She stared at the gold face, the precise little hands sweeping forward, marking time she no longer had, time she no longer wanted. In Willow Creek, the morning slid into a glassy, unbothered afternoon. Lawns were mowed, sprinklers sputtered to life. Children rode bicycles down the cracked sidewalks. From here, it all looked like another planet, a planet where no one had to bury their past in shallow graves that refused to stay closed. Claire rose slowly, the chair legs scraping softly against the floor, and carried the watch upstairs. The house was silent, still. As she climbed, the ticking in her hand grew louder, matching the beat of her pulse. She no longer questioned it, no longer fought it. At the top of the stairs, she paused. Michael's study. The door was slightly ajar, just as he always left it, as if expecting to return, as if daring her to intrude. She pushed it open. Inside, the room was untouched. His scent, a ghostly trace of cologne and paper and something darker, still hung faintly in the air. His chair, the heavy mahogany desk, the neat rows of books, all remained exactly as he'd left them, or perhaps exactly as he wanted them to remain. Claire stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The watch's ticking slowed, deepened, resonating through the room like a heartbeat. Claire moved to the desk, the carpet muffling her footsteps, and sat down in Michael's chair. The leather groaned under her weight, a quiet, conspiratorial sound. She placed the watch in the center of the desk, the second hand twitching gently forward. A movement caught her eye. The bottom drawer was slightly open. Claire frowned. She didn't remember leaving it like that. Michael had always been possessive of that drawer, his private sanctum. She had never dared look before. But now she no longer needed permission. She reached down and pulled it open. Inside, a single object rested atop a stack of papers, a slim, black-bound notebook. Claire hesitated, then lifted it free. The leather cover was worn smooth by use. No title, no markings, just a book, innocuous as a forgotten prayer. She opened it. The handwriting inside was familiar. Michael's, neat and severe. But it wasn't what she expected. It wasn't lesson plans or work notes. It was names, dates, details. Her name was there, Claire Weller. March 22nd, 2024. First warning, bruises on ribs, blamed on clumsiness. She flipped the page. April 15th, 2024. Second warning, attempted to withdraw savings. Another page, June 2nd, 2024. Final warning, found packing bags, intervention necessary. Claire's mouth went dry. Another entry, scrawled more recently. August 12th, 2024. Suspected collusion with Lena Hart. Surveillance initiated. Claire's vision blurred, the words swimming. Surveillance. He had known. He had known all along. Her hands trembled as she turned the next page. A photo slipped free, fluttering to the floor. She bent to pick it up. It was grainy, black and white, a still frame from what looked like a security feed. Her and Lena, at the coffee shop, heads close together, whispering, conspiring. On the back, in Michael's sharp script, control must be maintained, even after death. Claire let the photo fall. The room seemed to shrink around her, the walls drawing in, the air thickening. Michael had orchestrated everything, even this, even now. The watch ticked louder, filling her ears. Control must be maintained. She rose on unsteady legs, the notebook slipping from her fingers to land with a soft thud on the carpet. The watch gleamed malevolently under the dim light. She picked it up. It pulsed against her palm, almost warm. Claire left the study and moved back downstairs. Her footsteps were slow, deliberate, as if she were walking underwater. In the living room, she pulled back the curtain and stared out. Willow Creek basked in the lazy, golden light of early evening. The air shimmered with heat, cicadas humming their endless, mechanical song. Nothing had changed, and everything had. Across the street, a shape moved. Claire blinked. Michael. Standing there. Not a ghost. Not a memory. Real. Solid. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Just watched. Smiling. Claire's fingers tightened on the watch. A sound behind her. She turned. Lena stood in the doorway, soaked in sweat, hair plastered to her forehead, eyes wide and frantic. He's here, Lena gasped. I saw him. I saw... Claire held up a hand. Lena froze, panting. Claire took a step forward. Then another. Lena stepped back, confused. Claire? Claire smiled. Not a smile of reassurance. A smile of understanding. Acceptance. Michael was right, Claire said softly. Lena shook her head, backing away. No, Claire. No, he's manipulating you. This isn't real. But it is, Claire said, voice calm, serene. Control must be maintained. Lena's eyes widened in horror. Claire, don't... But Claire was already moving. Quick, fluid. The watch struck Lena's temple with a sickening crack. Lena crumpled without a sound, folding in on herself like an empty coat. Claire stood over her, breathing heavily. The watch ticked once, sharp and loud, and then fell silent. She stared down at Lena's body, at the blood pooling slowly beneath her. It wasn't anger she felt, not relief either. It was peace, order, control. Claire turned and moved back to the window. Michael was gone, but his absence was a promise, not of abandonment, of approval. Claire sat on the couch, the watch resting in her palm, the blood on its gold surface already beginning to dry. She stared at it, waiting, listening. It began to tick again, slow, steady, faithful. Claire smiled. In Willow Creek, life went on. Children laughed, sprinklers hissed. The sun sank low, casting long shadows across neat, empty streets. And in one house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a woman sat in silence, cradling a gold watch, waiting.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytime with Papa Owl. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe.